Hello, fellow gamers. Today, I'm going to play Rise of the Tomb Raider. If you're new here, my name is Paul, and I'm your average gamer. In this channel, I will show you how a regular Joe like me would fare in playing a game, any game, with the difficulty level set in the hardest mode. In my previous video, I played the first installment of the Tomb Raider Survivor Trilogy, Tomb Raider 2013. Now, in this video, I'm going to continue my journey and play Crystal Dynamics' second installment from the trilogy. Last time I laid out the 4 rules that I need to follow when playing these games. If you haven't seen it, you can check it out by clicking the link above. Also, to see more of my videos, hit the subscribe button and don't forget to smash that bell icon to get notified of my new uploads. Let's go through the ground rules again. Number 1. The difficulty level must be on the hardest mode for all aspects of the game, including puzzles and combat at all times. Number 2. I must achieve a 90% or above completion rate overall. Number 3. I must reach the final boss in under 20 hours of playtime. And number 4. No rage quitting before reaching the final boss. So, without further ado, let's go! To start off, let's talk about the map. Rise of the Tomb Raider is vast and much more larger than its predecessor. Obviously, as Yamatai was the only location for the reboot, the second installment is much bigger and a lot more diverse as it has 2 locations overall, Syria and Siberia, providing an enormous area for exploration. The game starts in the cold, snowy mountains of Siberia, reintroducing me to Lara's famous climbing axe. After I reached the top of the mountain, showing the legendary city of Kitesh, it triggered a very deadly avalanche. Then, we get to the cutscene that sets up Lara's motivation to go on a journey in finding an artifact that will restore her father's reputation. After the awesome, albeit long cutscene, I find myself in the northwest border of Syria, racing against Trinity to reach the tomb of the Prophet. Upon reaching the lost city, I was reintroduced again to the mechanics of platforming. Immediately, the familiarity of resource gathering for parts and collectibles once again sets in. As with the previous installment, documents and artifacts can be found all throughout the map. And not only that, the developers also added more things to look for. For one, they added the mechanics of quote-unquote learning new languages to unlock new content and upgrade. In order to level up my language skills, I would have to look for monoliths and murals and read the inscriptions written on them. And these monuments are scattered all throughout the game. The developers also created the coin and survival cache in place of the GPS cache, which would be revealed on the map upon increasing your language proficiency. The coins can be used to purchase new equipments and can also be used for upgrading and crafting. The concept of buying weapons and equipments was a nice addition in the second installment. Collecting parts for weapon upgrades were still there. There are 2 ways to open strong boxes. The first one is to pry them open using Lara's hatchet, which is also a mechanic from the previous installment. The other way is through picking locks. In order to add the lockpick in Lara's arsenal, you will need to complete a side quest. And my favorite game mechanic, hunting. Lots and lots of hunting. They've also added the mechanics of tree climbing in order to hide from animals during hunting. This was also a handy trick to hide from the enemies. New mechanics like rope swinging and grappling were also introduced, which were really useful for exploration. And for those die-hard fans of the Tomb Raider franchise, rejoice! The mechanic that was missing in the reboot was reintroduced in this game, and that is swimming. The weapon selection have been expanded significantly and more upgrades were also available. All 6 categories, the bow, pistol, rifle, shotgun, melee, and explosives, have at least 2 subcategories under each. One example is the bow, which has 8 subtypes, one of which is a compound bow. Another new feature which has been really enjoyable to use is the crafting system. The world was sprinkled with raw materials like cans, bottles, and jars, which can be crafted into explosives. These empty vessels can be transformed into Molotov cocktails, smoke grenades, and shrapnel bombs, just to name a few. So, the weaponry in general is leaps above the reboot. Similar to the previous installment, combat in this game was also challenging in the hardest difficulty level. The AI has the same aggressiveness, but they were much easier to deal with compared to the previous installment. The stealth aspect of the game also helped me get through some of the levels with relative ease. Attacks can be done when hiding by performing stealth takedowns. Upgrading my weapons through salvaging also was a big plus during combat, as it allowed me to increase ammunition capacity and lessen recoil. Melee combat was also prominent in this game, especially after getting the combat knife. One mechanic that was also added was the manual health regeneration. This is most especially useful when severe injuries were sustained during combat. The difficulty level of the puzzles in this game were very similar to the previous game. It was fairly difficult. In general, puzzle solving for this game is quite challenging and at times will make you pull your hair. Most of the puzzles were needed to be solved in order to progress with the storyline, but most of them are included in order to add more challenge in acquiring the codex or the upgrades. So, how did I fare this time? Let's go through the rules again. The difficulty level must be on the hardest mode at all times. General gameplay on hard mode is a little easier compared to the reboot. The AI were much easier to kill too this time around, and the combat was also a little bit tolerable and less frustrating than the first one. It's also possible that I've gotten better at the game, as most of the controls were similar from the previous game. The difficulty of the puzzles for this one is still the same compared to the previous installment. It's moderately hard. I must achieve a 90% or above completion rate overall. Unfortunately, I fell short from the required overall completion rate, which sucks. I was aiming to at least hit the mark but ultimately fell short. I was only able to reach 86% overall. Like I said in my previous video, I am not a completionist, so I stopped exploring when I reached the last level for the game. Also, I was targeting to complete the storyline in under 20 hours, so I didn't grind too hard. I must reach the final boss in under 20 hours of playtime. I was aiming to beat the game in under 20 hours, but by the end of the story, I overshot my target by 6 hours. So, that's a massive fail. That world is so big and there are a lot of tombs and caves to discover, and 20 hours is a little short for a map as big as this. I might enjoy the occasional torture, but I also wanted to enjoy the game, so speedrunning was never an option. No rage quitting before reaching the final boss. This time the final boss was really challenging. I've been stripped of all my weapons minus the axe and the knife, so I was at a disadvantage even before the fight began. The baddie this time was a human, but he was using a rifle against my knife and hatchet. A bit unfair, don't you think? It took me a while to realize that I needed to use my environment in order to gain advantage, and after I figured out how to beat him, timing the bomb correctly was the key. So, after a long, arduous journey, I managed to beat the game in the hardest mode with a score of 2 out of 4. And there you have it, guys. Let me know in the comment section what games or what type of games do you want me to play next. I'll be playing the last installment of the series next. If you were entertained by my playing, hit the like button, smash that bell icon to get notified of my latest uploads, and please don't forget to click subscribe. It would truly help the channel out. Thank you so much for watching until the end, and I will see you fellow gamers on the next one.